welcome back. So, about a year ago, the lovely people at Fairyloot made a declaration in favour of trans rights and against supporting artists who are transphobic or actively harmful to people, as we normally call it. And I've been on the waiting list for their box ever since. This turns out to be a really good move, morally and commercially. Also, got my copy of Felix Ever After, which I'm not entirely sure what that's doing. It's waiting in the library for me, so I'm excited about that, even though I don't really know what's going on about it. And so, as a celebration, I thought I'd put together a video with trans characters. And then I thought for a bit, and just like in real life, I can't remember which characters are trans, canonically trans, and which are not. So I thought I'd go for something slightly different. Characters who are maybe a little bit genderqueer, maybe non-binary, and tell you about some of those books. These are all recommendations, and I'm going to start with picture books. Now, gender in small children is very fluid, very flexible, and in my experience, small children often like to try out different gender identities, different gender expressions, mix and match, see where they're at before they settle or don't settle, depending on what sort of person they are. So these books are more about expression and fluidity, apart from the first one, which is Red, A Crayon Story by Michael Hall. Oh, I don't have any of these to hand because our picture books are all in a mess, but Red, A Crayon Story by Michael Hall. In this book, there is a crayon with a red label. He came from the factory with a red label. His parents know he's red. He's red. Absolutely red. When he draws, it doesn't come out red. And it's a story about how what's inside doesn't necessarily match what's outside. And it's only when you ignore the label and listen to the person that the person can be happy. And it's about treating people with respect and listening to what they're telling you about who they are. The second one is My Princess Boy by Cheryl Killer Davis. This, again, it's a book about expression. It's a boy. He's quite clear, if I remember correctly, that he's a boy all the way through. But he's a boy who likes to sparkle. He likes unicorn. Yeah! He like you. Grania says she's also a pretty princess. Just like this boy, who is a pretty princess, and he likes to wear tiaras, and he likes unicorns, and he likes to sparkle. And this is just lovely because he doesn't love sparkly. Yeah. The next one is Julian is a Mermaid by Jessica Love. This was massively popular, so you've probably heard of this one already, even if you haven't heard of the other books. In this book, Julian goes on a bus ride with his grandmother, and they meet some mermaids on the bus, and they are the most beautiful thing he's ever seen, and he just wants to grow up to be a mermaid. And so his grandmother helps him become a mermaid. And this metaphor of mermaids is quite common within the trans community, I believe. That's why the charity for trans kids here in the UK is called Mermaids. And isn't it shit that they need a charity? But we need to look after them. It's like one of those, when someone think of the children, well, mermaids do. Okay, so those are my picture books I'm just going to talk about, and I'm going to move on to middle grade books. Dragonhurl by Ian Harley. This is a story about a nine-tailed fox who goes in search of her brother, and along the way who's gone missing, and on the way she meets various different people, makes friends with various different people, some of whom are trans or non-binary. I'm not always great at remembering, but it's a sci-fi mystery. It's very exciting. It's very lovely. And a shout out for Lee's adult books as well, which also include a lot of trans and genderqueer characters, because that's the world we live in. I mean, it's not the world we live in. It's sci-fi in space. But the cast of characters reflects people. Magnus Chasing the Sword of Summer. This is the first of the Magnus Chase books by Rick Riordan. Because it's set in Norse mythology, there is a high-profile genderqueer character because no one bothers to stick to one gender in Norse mythology. It's so boring. And Alex is super lovely and super great, and also the love interest. And the next one I'm going to talk about is a bit of a headcanon. But do you remember in Three Go Camping, the last book in the series by She Must Not Be Named, Hermione has no problems with her periods. We were thinking about this, like, it's not realistic that someone at that age never has pain but can just move on as quickly as possible if they're cis. There's nothing in the books which says Hermione isn't trans. Nothing. Headcanon accepted. Moving on to adult books. I've already mentioned Yoon Ha Lee. I haven't got any of his adult books to hand at the moment, but his adult books also feature a queer host. His adult books also feature a host of genderqueer and trans characters. A Trifle Dead by Livia Day. I actually can't remember, like in real life, I can't remember who in the book is trans or not trans canonically, but they have a host of different gender presentations, and this was the first book that I read and thought, yeah, this is a book like me and my friends. Like, any of us could just slip, or any of these characters could slip into my social circle and no one would be sad or think they were odd. It just feels like us. And so I think that's a really important book. So in this book, the main character, Tabitha, runs a cafe in Hobart, Tasmania. And so the books are all about her cooking, her desserts, and a little bit of sprinkling of murder. Well, quite a lot of murder. It's like she doesn't skimp on the cream and she doesn't skimp on the murders. The Gospel of Loki by Joanne M. Harris. This is all the stringing together of lots of different Norse myths, but told from the perspective of Loki and written after Ragnarok, because all her Norse books are written after Ragnarok. And it's great. And of course, Loki is the archetypal genderqueer hero or anti-hero, depending on whose point of view you're looking at it from. But in this book, he's the hero, or at least the protagonist. So yeah, would recommend. And in fact, anything based on Norse myth is probably going to have some element of genderqueerness. And the last book I'm going to recommend to you today is The Deep and Shining Dark by Juliet Kemp. In this book, there's a city whose magic relies on the angel of the city, and then the magic stopped working and no one couldn't work out why, and then the angel turns up and they start a whole chain of shenanigans. And angels obviously don't have gender. So that's just the way angels are. So it's quite nice to follow that angel. And then there are other characters who are non-binary, because some people are non-binary. And it's a really great book. Yeah. Great book, and I would definitely recommend it. And Ronnie wants to come for say hello. You come in, darling. Granny doesn't know about gender yet. Everyone's a good girl or a nice lady, or sometimes both. All right, say bye bye, darling. Say bye bye.